I'm so excited to welcome my guest today, Dr. Jay Barnett, an incredible voice for transformation and change and healing. Today, welcome to the show, Jay.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Wow, you've been really doing a lot. I've been seeing you popping up everywhere. I saw you interviewing on your Just Heal podcast, my brother Major, who I went to college with.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a hilarious interview. So we're
Hey,
going to talk about the Just Heal podcast. We're also going to talk about some of your books and your speaking and all of that. So
yes,
I know you've got some really exciting news. You just closed on a mental health practice here in DFW area, which is where I
yes,
live. So
yes,
really excited to hear more about that and the impact you're excited to make here in Dallas.
yes. So we acquired a mental health practice, which has four locations in the DFW area, and it's something that just kind of fell in my lap. Really, I was in a meeting for something else, and that came up, and they said, "Listen, we have someone that is transitioning out, and they're looking for someone who can take over that has the understanding, that has the experience in the mental health space." And so they said, we think you should really engage with the owner. And I started having conversations with her. We met a few times, and she had told me that she had met with several other people. And she says, Dr. J, I think that person is you. And I said, oh, really? She says, no, I want you to purchase it. I want you to really consider it. So it was about a 2.5, 3 month process of doing our due diligence. It's a very successful practice. The practice has been around about 9 years. And we're looking, my business partner and I, my best friend, Dr. Joe Tugman, who is a world renowned preacher and pastor. We have a heart for people, me having a background in the mental health space, and he has a counseling background along what he does in ministry. We just felt that it was I wouldn't say the right thing to do. We felt it was the purposeful thing to do
Mm.
for us. So God really opened the door for us, even throughout the whole process. To be two African American men, that are owners of this practice that we've acquired. It's a blessing, and we look forward to expanding the practice, expanding the services the practice has to offer, and building people from all walks of life, all genres, all backgrounds. And so we're excited about it. I mean, I'm so much is happening for me, Crystal, and it's just
Yeah.
like, man, I've spoke a lot, publicly about my football career. That's it coming to an abrupt end. I've traveled the country sharing my story of surviving suicide, two suicide attempts, and just to see where God has me on the back end of my life is just unbelievable.
I see it, and I felt it when you were on stage the other day
Oh, wow, wow.
at the WOW Business Conference here in Dallas.
Yes.
I was listening to you speak, and initially I was like, "Oh my gosh, who is this incredible, athletic-looking guy on the stage?" But immediately I locked in on your heart and your message and the words that you were sharing, and you've been, creating these platforms, and obviously the anointing, the grace of God is all over you because things seem to be really taking off. You've self-published a few books, and
Hmm.
you're also now, I think, recently had a publishing deal, and you're working on another
Yes.
book. Isn't that right?
Yes. 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 I just, I'm just blown away. But what I love about my life, it has been a true reflection of trusting God, even when you don't understand. I didn't understand why I was going through what I went through, abandonment and rejection as a child, why I had so much pain, all of those different things. But going to therapy at 31 and taking that chance, uh, and being open to say, who could I become? I knew the story that I had, but I was looking for a new story. And that's what I tried to do with my books early on in my career, writing books like Letters to a Young Queen, which was young girls that didn't have a father figure, or girls who had a male figure or didn't have male influence in a healthy way. That book was inspired from the work that I used to do in the group homes for girls who were victims of sex trafficking, girls who were runaways. That inspired that book. Hello King was a book around my story. Um, Finding Our Lost Kings and Queens was a book that I wrote for people who mentor and work with young people. And then I wrote Just Heal Bro, which is my testament to healing and journaling and finding my voice, which turned into a national tour. And now, I wrote my first book in 2014. So, almost 10 years ago, and 10 years later to be on book number five, which is my book with Penguin Random House with the imprint of Water Brooks. They believe in this project that I have for both men and women. So I've picked in certain seasons where I'm speaking to men or I'm speaking to women. But in this season, I feel that God has wanted me to speak to both men and women. And the title of the book is Pursuing Pace. And I have pursued pace and I do pursue pace. And that has really kept me, on this journey and on this trajectory that God has for me. So I'm excited because I want people in the world to understand that you have to find a pace that fits you and stop comparing yourself to the pace of others because that's what's really exhausting most of us, Crystal.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that, and lately the weight of comparisonitis and imposter syndrome definitely is something I'm working through. So some of the questions I'm going to get into center around identity and self-worth and how to start to see yourself the way God does as you're coming
Yes,
out of that healing process. Because I'm a trauma survivor as well myself, starting from a very young age, but also at 14, a birth mother from rape. And so some of the concepts you talked about with regard to the heart work, I know very well. And a lot of people I'm starting to step into this identity as a transformation coach, as a speaker. But most people know me as a media maven, a journalist, a publicist, working in the entertainment business. So that's just a little bit about me. But
yes.
we're gonna focus on you because I really want to go back to that moment you mentioned. I heard you mention shortly after your second suicide attempt when your godmother stepped in and spoke to you and really intervened. What happened in that moment that cracked something open for you? And what responsibility do you think us as loved ones or our loved ones have to intervene in depression?
I think beyond the responsibility, I think there's a position that our loved one play. There's a role that they can actively activate to where they can speak to us when we can't speak to ourselves. Because the thing about the brain, when you have experienced trauma, we know trauma rewires the brain. And you can be so engulfed and wrapped up in your pain that you can't even see your way out. I was saying it's one thing to, think that people care about you, but it's another thing to experience the care of people when you're in your lowest moment. And I was able to experience that care from my godmother because the conversation that she had for me, she said, "You got to get some help." Because I was living with her and I was living with her because I was trying to get my life together. And when she said that, it was what she said that spoke to me because um I want to be careful. It's not that my family at the time couldn't speak to me. I don't think they knew how to speak to me because I was the only one that was going through this experience. And I think sometimes our families don't realize the severity of what we're going through because if you're not in it, it's hard for you to, to really talk about it and explain it. And sometimes it can be complicated. And what is complicated for others is your reality because you're like, man, I'm living in this pain. And they're like, well, you seem to be doing fine for me. You're still working out. You're still running, jumping. You're still putting on your makeup. You're still smiling. But the truth of a lot of smiles, Crystal, there's a lot of sadness and brokenness behind these smiles. So my godmother was pivotal in me going to therapy.
Hmm. Yeah, a family is a big part of why I'm here today, and I can
Yes,
relate to that, and that just knowing that you have someone there that you can call at any time or is really going to call you higher, right? Speak to the leader
yes.
in you rather than where you're seeing yourself in that moment. So what made you decide to turn your breakthrough and healing into a mission to help others? When did
I
you
I,
decide to
I
go out?
didn't.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm honest, I didn't. It was something, as Bishop Jakes, often say to me. He said, "Sometimes you stumble into your next," and I stumbled into this. I was working at a group home, and I wasn't working at a group home for a job. I was openly volunteering because I ran a sports training business that I did very well, and once a week I went and poured back into kids and to teenagers, and I loved it because I was always great in developing programs. I would take about five key tenets or five key topics and create objectives. And I was making these programs at group homes who were like, hey, can you bring it to us?
Was that the Me Project? Was
Yes,
that?
yes. That was a me project, which was my boys' version, and then I had the we project, which was my girls' version. And the we was women of excellence, and me men of excellence. And
Okay.
so it was something that I stumbled into. Alicia Jarrett, who was the director of Upbring Group Home for Girls, she called me in the office one day and she says, "Jay, you need to go back to school, man." And I was like, "No." I was like, "Go back to school for what?" She said, "You should consider being a therapist." She says, "Jay, these kids love you, and you have such a unique way that when you're talking, they lock in on you." And to be honest, Crystal, what made me show up for these kids is because I wanted to give them what I wanted. I wanted somebody to show up for me and say, "Hey, I care." I wanted somebody. When my parents divorced, I didn't have that, so I was always looking for that. And when I began to go back to school, I went, did my research, got into a MFT program at North Central University. And from the first class that I took was general family therapy, I was locked in. And I wasn't locked in so I can go and teach others, man. I was locked in because it was helping me understand my family dynamics, the way that my parents communicated, the way I communicated with others, because we broke down systems, which is the environment that you live in. The subsystem is the environment within the environment. So I was having this experience like, man, this is really dope. And it wasn't until about year 3 or 4 that I felt God said, I want you to tell others about your experience in college and what you are learning. So I didn't run up to jump and say I want to be this world therapist. What I'm experiencing, I did not see, but I did believe God when He said I was going to use you and use everything that you had gone through.
Hmm. Yes. Thank you, God. Yeah. So let's talk about that moment where you were kind of in that gap, right? From where you are now,
Hmm.
but you had really kind of gone on your healing journey, but before you fully saw yourself that way in God's eyes, what part of you had to die?
My belief system. I did not. Number one, I did not believe God loved me, and not because God love is not real. I was associating God love with my father.
Mm,
And because my father was not really present, and because he didn't really have a real relationship with me, I did not feel that I was good enough to receive God's love, let alone I was good enough to be loved by him. Because if my father can love me in this way, how can God love me in this way? And most of us struggle with that, and that becomes the belief that we hold to, that becomes the narrative, that also becomes the mantra that we live by. No one cares. Nobody loves us. Nobody wants to see us do well. Nobody, cares that we progress. And to be honest, it's a lie because God cares. And his word, he talks about how he feeds the birds. He talks about how he feeds the animals. And he said, what more will I do for my children? If I'm making sure everyone else is taken care of, why wouldn't I care that you're taken care of? So my belief system that I was not good enough had to die. When that began to die, I had to deconstruct everything that I had learned about myself from what I went through. Because sometimes we can experience trauma and it can shift how we see ourselves and how we see the world. And however you see the world is going to determine how you show up in the world.
mhm.
So that was the first thing that had to die, my belief system, and I had to die to the story that I was holding on to.
Absolutely. You're embodying a new identity comes with a lot of sacrifice of that old version of you and shifting those limiting beliefs. So for people that do make it out to the other side, right? Survivors like us, a lot of us still wrestle with imposter syndrome, and you seem to be embodying this confidence. Is there a discipline behind that from a practical standpoint? How do you navigate those moments where you need to encourage yourself or you need to, um, you know, really believe in yourself?
Well, I think the discipline, I'm very disciplined from being a pro athlete, but also I think it's discipline in the consistency of practicing speaking to yourself in the way that gives you life. Most of us don't talk to ourselves well. The inner dialogue is what I call it. So the discipline is that there are some times where people now to be in this space and people like so there's such reverence that they have for my work, the way that they revere the work that I do and honor. Man, to be honest, it's humbling because I'm like, man, you know i I'm walking through the airport and somebody be like, yo man, thank you brother. And it's so humbling. So the discipline is that no matter what levels you go to, the enemy's job is to always to get you to question who God has called you to be.
Mm.
And so whatever is reverberating in your head and his thoughts is to get, I mean, his language is to get you to pulverize the purpose that God has. He wants to get you to not believe that you are enough. And if he can get you to believe that you are not enough, it's going to minimize your confidence. And so I had to learn that my confidence is not in my degrees. I'm very intelligent. But my confidence is not in what I've achieved. My confidence is what I'm able to hold to. And to hold to that, not only am I fearfully and wonderfully made, I am everything that He's called me to be. But when he talked about which is Jeremiah, when he talked about, I formed thee in the belly of your, before I knew thee, before I formed you in the belly of your mother's womb. We have to believe that. I think sometimes as Christians, we'll take the word and we'll look at it and we'll place an individual that we read about in the Bible, but we never will put ourselves there. And the discipline I have is putting myself there to say, no, God knew everything about you before you would go through it. He's not surprised. You may be, but he's not. So consistently, I'm constantly not only speaking the word to me, but I'm also allowing the word to resonate in my spirit. Because there will be times that, and you know this, there will be times where the enemy will make you question everything. Not something, I mean everything. You'll question your life. You'll question your skills. You will question, what I'm saying, your purpose. And you will begin to question God. So, and none of those things are wrong to question them, but I think it's important that we know when we question ourselves, what is your answer? And that's not to remove you from your reality, but what is the answer that He's already provided?
I love what you're speaking on because I've just been being loved on by the amount of uh, word in the Bible, like on confidence and how much confidence and power that God gives us. It's
Yes,
incredible. It's accessible to us. But like you said, from a practical standpoint, it's keeping our word to ourselves, keeping our word to God. Um,
yes.
where do you sense that God's vision is leading you next? Where are you challenging yourself to grow?
I feel like what's happening next is that God is calling me higher. He's calling me to go bigger. I did a tour for 3 years for the Jess Hill Bro. 3 years, 33 cities, 18,000 men, and I think God is calling me to go bigger and to now hold a conference for men. And so that's scary.
Yeah.
But you know, oddly enough, I received a phone call about a week ago, and a guy said, "I think it's time for you to do a big conference." And financially, I have the means to do it and get behind it for you. So I feel God calling me that. I feel God calling me to take up more space in entertainment. take a more. And I'm just like, God, I don't know if I have the capacity. And he's saying to me, it's not about if you have the capacity, it's about you activating the capacity that's already in you. And
Mm,
I think we spend so much time going back and forth questioning him.
mm.
And he's like, just get moving. And what I learned is as you get moving, you'll watch the capacity begin to come and expand. Again, his thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. And I think too many times we're trying to comprehend the things of God and we can't, because the word talks about how he used the foolish things of man to combine. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I'm learning to lean into what he says, even if I don't understand it. I believe that obedience is best displayed when you don't understand. So I'm just like, okay, I just got to obey. And as I move forward, the resources come, the people come. So yeah,
Yeah, because God knows what his account looks like. He knows what check he can write. You know what I mean?
absolutely,
He starts the
absolutely,
word there, but he also knows the power he placed inside of you.
yes,
Even the parts that you can't even see yet, that haven't
hmm
fully emerged yet. So I just have two more kind of questions to touch on
yeah,
before we wrap up. This next one is about forgiveness. You've talked a lot about how forgiveness such played a big
yes.
part in healing. I know that too personally. Um, so just one question to touch on relationships and dating. How has forgiveness shaped the way you approach relationships and dating?
Oh, sorry.
How has
So
forgiveness expanded your capacity to love?
that's a great question, Crystal. Forgiveness have expanded my capacity to love because it's removed my expectation of the human walk to allow everyone to have their own journey and to not expect me from other people. And also forgiving myself. I think we're so focused on trying to forgive others that we don't realize forgiving yourself is more important than forgiving others.
Mhm,
Because as you begin to forgive yourself, you're able to release whatever pain someone has caused upon you or whatever pain that you are concealing from the individual. Is it easy? No. But forgiveness allows you to breathe. Most people are suffocating because of unforgiveness. Can you change what was said? Can you change what was done? No. But my capacity to love is to also expand my capacity to give grace. And giving grace doesn't mean that you are allowing somebody back into your life or you have to allow somebody to hold that space again. Forgiveness is just saying, I won't hold the weight. You know
mhm.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
so we may have changed to where, okay, I forgave you, and we may not be as close as we once were, but I don't hold the weight of what you said. I don't hold the weight of what you done, or I don't even hold the weight of the failed expectation.
Mhm.
And I think to truly understand love is to truly understand the capacity that is required in love.
Yeah. And
Because love,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
We're all at different stages in our walk with God, right? And so even in dating, I think forgiveness plays a role because it's and grace, because it's kind of like, we don't want to allow our personal space, right? We want people to, like you said, stay in the yard versus the porch, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
I've been doing my homework,
yeah,
Jay.
yeah.
Um, but there is a certain level of I see you and I see where you're at, but I also respect that. You know what I mean? And I'm not
Hmm.
going to hold it against you. I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to move on, for whoever's
Right, right.
go. But I loved that analogy. Thank you for that.
Yeah, yes.
Um, so lastly, you had an appearance on Den of Kings, and I just want to say this. So you're sitting in rooms at tables on stages with kings, both in the world of spirituality and religion, and also culture and entertainment. And I love that for you. But to see you at a table with Kirk Franklin and all of these other celebrities, what did that moment affirm in you, and what did it challenge in you?
It affirmed that one, I am him. And when I say that I am Him, meaning that I am everything that God has always called me to be. I didn't believe it. Uh, I didn't. I didn't perceive it because sometimes when, and so I give you 2 points. One, we either don't believe things because there's parts of us that are challenged with accepting that God said it's you. The second part of that is if you're surrounded by people who know you have a light and know that you have a gift, but they treat you as if you are regular. And when I say regular, I'm not just talking about normal, but they treat you like you're regular because your light also lights up rooms when you're around a place and they're constantly trying to dim your light or make you question who you are. And I think for me, being at that table, I began to think about all of the people that God removed from my life to get me to see who He had called me to be. It affirmed that the road that I had taken that was lonely, it was worth it. It affirmed that the work that I have done beyond the credentials, that it was worth it. That choosing me was worth it because I have now, I didn't build an image, I built a man. You know, because sometimes we are so focused on building a persona. And if you build a persona and don't build a person, the persona is going to kill the person. So it affirmed me that the work that I had done was now speaking for me, and I didn't have to speak for myself because I received a call for that invitation. I didn't have to pitch myself, hey, can y'all invite me? No, I was invited,
Yeah.
and so it affirmed me. But and then the challenge to answer this part, the challenge was that there's more eyes on you. And the more eyes on you, the more responsibility you have with the gift that God has given you. And so the challenge is that to whom much is given, much is required. And because there's much required, you got to manage the giving.
Hmm. I love that. Okay. Well, I know I love how you talk on your Just Heal podcast with
Thank you. Thank you.
some quick, powerful reflections. You like to ask people one word, what does it mean to them? So,
Yes.
so Jay, I'm going to give you two words, okay? And then
Okay.
I'll finish up. What does leadership mean to you?
Leadership is sacrifice. I think when you think about leadership, you have to be willing to the word I love to use because I love words, abnegate. You have to be willing to give up yourself because leadership is not about look at me. Leadership is about look at you. And oftentimes we don't think about leadership in that way because if you're leading, you're usually out front. But I don't want to be out front. I want to be behind because I don't want them to push me. I want to push them. So leadership
Mhm.
is sacrifice, is pulling yourself behind so the people that are following you can move forward.
Okay. And submission. What does the word submission mean to you?
Submission, I would probably say that it's synonymous um, to sacrifice. Submission is giving it all up,
Love that.
surrendering, and letting go of what you had in mind and saying, I give myself up.
I love that. All right. Well, anything we should be watching out for, or specific ways that we can support your work moving forward, Jay?
Yes, we are on the Breakfast Club. My best friend and I, Dr. Joe Tugman, for World Mental Health Day. We're excited about that episode. The world get to see our friendship on display. They get to see the work that we're doing in faith and in mental health. And I'm just excited that God is expanding my platform to continue seeing people be well. I think we're so concerned about looking well, but are we feeling well? Are we living well? Are we loving well? Are we sleeping well? So that's what I'm on. I'm just excited that everything that God told me when I survived is coming to pass, man, and it blows me away. And when I think about my life, what I constantly say to myself is, eyes have not seen, nor have ears heard, or enter into the heart of man what he has prepared for me. and I'll give you that word as well. Eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, or entered to the heart of man what God has for you. So I'm telling you, stay the course. Don't look to the right, don't look to the left. And as my mama said, baby, if I'm dead, if I'm here or dead and gone, keep your eyes on the man.
On the prize. That's right.
Yep, keep your eyes on the man. The prize may move because the prize is the outcome, but the man being God, Jesus, keeping your eyes on him.
Yes.
So as long as you do that, he's going to guide you. So,
Yes, sir. I received that. Thank
yes,
you.
ma'am.
All right. So where can we find you, support your work?
Yes, you guys can find me, King J Barnett, on all socials, Instagram, TikTok, X, if people still use X. I'm not on X. But all of my books, Just Heal Bro, Letters to Young Queen, Hello King, Finding Our Lost King. All of my books are on Amazon. And then also be on the lookout for my new book. We got another year and a half in 2027, Pursuing Pace. And PACE is the acronym Pathways to Alleviating Cognitive Exhaustion.
Ooh, I see you're pacing yourself. Okay, we're gonna be patiently waiting.
Yes, I'm pacing myself, Crystal. Because listen, if it was left up to the people, they'd be like, "Man, we need this book tomorrow."
Right.
Yes,
Thank you so much. We're so glad you joined us today, Jay. And you all make sure you follow, support, comment, like, subscribe, all those good things. Thank you so much.
yes. Thank you.